This is Beyond Business. Witness the real lives of Cranbrook's female entrepreneurs as they candidly tell their stories, their experiences, and their struggles in raw, revealing conversations. Today, my guest is Alissa Binghall. She is a owner at Sunshine Houseboats on Lake Koocanusa. And I am always honored to be sharing space with this woman. She is ambitious, she is caring, and incredibly resourceful. Today we are going to be talking about how she navigates work and life and family. So welcome, Alissa. I'm so glad that you are here.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Sunshine Houseboats is a business that's been around, I think, since the late 90s. I feel like I got to be on one of the first houseboats on Lake Koocanusa.
1999.
1999.
It's 25 years this year.
Amazing. And It is a family business.
Through and through.
So your mom and dad started the company back in 99. And when did you come back? Why don't we start with you telling me how you got into this? Because this is not what you went to school for.
No, not at all. So we were living in Vancouver at the time, and I'd always been, I guess, a client of Sunshine's because we would go back with our friends every single year from Vancouver. Basically the city pushed us out, couldn't stay, 2 young boys, 900 square feet, decided to come back to Cranbrook when a job came up for my husband at the time. And so my intention was just to be able to stay home with our kids longer while we were around family, and then noticed that they needed help. And so I was like, I can write government. I can do all the government applications and help and assist them in really preparing the business to sell. That's what I was thinking it was going to happen. And then I had a few summers out there and I go, I like this. This is awesome. Seeing people happy, being part of their moments of joy. Like, we all save money to do vacations and things that we want to do together, and being part of multiple people's joy it's fulfilling. It's totally fulfilling. So basically I got the bug, and then my dad noticed that he thought I had the competency of someone that could take over the company, and said, hey, would you want to do this? And I said, yeah, I think I do. I do.
How long ago was that when your dad had that conversation with you? Because it sounds like, and I didn't know this piece, up until that point, you thought you were coming back to help your parents prepare to sell this company because they were going to be retiring and moving on.
Yeah, they were. They were supposed to be, they knew that they couldn't do it forever, that they were going to age out, and that it was a very difficult company to either sell or just transition out of. It's very labor capital intensive business. So that would have been 12 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
So 12 years ago,
yeah,
your dad notices that, hey, you could actually do this.
He put it out to all of us, lovely, because I'm one of 4 sisters, very strong women, put it out to all of us. And we were all in different places at the time. Obviously, it was a choice that I was, very clearly understanding what I was getting into, mostly. Lots of lessons learned in between then and now. But I felt pretty convicted from an early stage that I was like, I want to do this. I love the mix of it. It fits my personality. It's where I figured out that I'm not only good at planning and organizing, telling people what to do, but I'm good at managing and caring for people. That the beauty of being able to be under my dad, I called it the business of Brant, the school of Brant, because under him, learning how to be a good business person and just caring for people. I learned that under him, even though my logical, rational brain is very strong and can do things. I have high capacity to see situations and work through them quickly and empower people, not give up on people. So those are all things that I think are needed to be successful.
Well, and this wasn't your dad's first business.
No.
So he was a serial entrepreneur. So for him, selling businesses wasn't a big thing either. He had already gone through that experience.
Yes, he was 50 when he started Sunshine Houseboats.
50.
50.
Seems like a good business for a 50-year-old.
Sitting on the shores of Coogan. How do I keep doing this? That was what he asked himself.
How do I keep getting to spend time at the lake?
Yep.
Because that was his holiday place when he was running his other businesses.
Yep.
So that was the motivation for where this company was birthed.
Yep. Yep.
Now, when he came to you and presented this idea to you and your three sisters about, is there someone here that wants to take this over? Did you feel that he was asking you, or did you feel like he was asking all of you? Because one of the things I notice about your family is they're very relational, and they want to give people equal opportunity.
Yes, 100%. I would like to say it's that structured. It's not. It was, I call it gray, which can be a good thing, but sometimes it's like, what would you think about maybe doing this? Could you see yourself doing that maybe? Well, yes, and then that takes time to get to that place where you feel confident enough. Yes, approaching my other sisters, they always wanted to be fair. And is that a great quality? Yes, but it's also a difficult part to navigate in a family business because you can't always be fair. You just can't. And some people have different capacities that change what they can do. It doesn't change their worth, but what they can do. And sometimes those align with businesses that are family businesses, and sometimes they don't.
Well, and I love what you just said about worth. It doesn't impact worth. Or it doesn't impact the value that person has as a person, but they may not have capacity to be in a leadership role in business. Mm-hmm. And I myself am from a family of entrepreneurs and have seen the dynamics of what family business can look like and the pressure that some family members have to fill these roles that they're not necessarily suited to, or to step into shoes that maybe aren't really a good fit. And it can be, I think, very difficult because I notice in my own family when there are so many entrepreneurs, everybody thinks that anybody can do this and we should all be doing this because everybody is doing it. So when you have one or two that don't necessarily fit that, I think it can impact their sense of self.
100%. I'm maybe too honest at times. But I'm always saying and asking the hard questions and saying those things like, this doesn't represent your worth. And it shouldn't. And that would be a dangerous place to be. Same with me. I wouldn't solely identify myself as solely a GM or an owner of Sunshine Houseboats. I'm many other things other than that. Do I find worth and fulfillment from my job? Yes, I do. And that's great. Because not everybody has that. But I am very convicted in that if you do want to be in the family business, that you should want to be there for the right reasons and not because you feel obligated. That's, I think, a recipe that may not work out.
Right. Well, because I think there can be a lot of burden on kids when the parents have a company and you want to see your parents doing well.
Yeah.
You want to see them in the place that they're supposed to be, whether that's not working as much or whether that's having more resources to take more time away, or even just the physical capacity piece. I noticed this with my dad in the last few years. His physical capacity has changed for what he can physically do. And so as a daughter, I want to make sure that whatever he's doing for business, he's still able to do and wanting to do. But what I think that end result can be is there's this pressure to take over the family business.
Yep. It's I don't do it for anyone else other than my immediate family. And if there's benefits to my greater family, then that's awesome. It doesn't mean I disrespect or don't do things for people, but I think you have to do things for the right reasons. It's the basics of it. And if you have some people in a family that maybe feel like they have to do something when they don't have to do it. This is a choice. We get to choose, and choose for the right reasons. Choose because you're good for it, good for you, good for your family. And that's how I look at, choosing to be part of Sunshine, is that there's going to be some sacrifices, and there have been, but that I choose this. I choose this because I see worth in it. I see worth for my family, myself, my husband. I choose this.
Well, and it sounds like when you made that decision to step into this business, it wasn't coming out of a place of somebody needs to take this over from my mom and dad so that they can be free from this business. Like,
no,
that is a side benefit of you coming in, and that they don't necessarily have to market it to sell it outside of the family, and that the succession plan has been somewhat easier because they've seen somebody who's interested. So, but you knew that this was the place for you.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, with some moments of going, oh man, like, I usually in June question my self-existence because spring is hard. But I know it passes. I know it's not forever. It's a season, so you can be like, okay, you're going to get through this. And you do. You do get through it. But yes, I've known for a long time that I wanted to do it for the long haul. As long as it keeps doing those things. Like as much as I want to see a long future history for the company, if it no longer makes sense for whatever reasons, I also don't personally tie myself to it. And I think that's healthy, because if you are too tied to it sometimes personally, that can be really hard.
Well, and what's wonderful about this is because your dad started this business when he was 50, you have an understanding that things, even in business, are not forever.
Yep.
And that you don't have to keep making this business work for you if it doesn't work anymore for the life that you want or for the direction that you're going.
Yep.
Now, the difference from your dad to you is that your dad, this wasn't a legacy business.
No.
And now it is more of a legacy business because it was started by your parents and now you're running it. So do you feel any burden there to make it successful or to maintain it because of where it began?
Yes, definitely. There's some part there, but it's more just about it making sense. There's just this make sense piece. Like, you do it because it makes sense, not because it existed before. Because history dictates bad things have happened in the past. And once you know better, you do better, right? Same thing with anything. So if the company is doing well and it's providing and it's, doing a service or a product or whatever, then of course you want to keep doing it. But if something happened to change that, I would adjust. I like change, bring change. Like, it's been 5 years of constant change, whether it be a fire season to COVID, to labor shortages, to whatever else. There's always something going on. And that is, you just have to embrace it, but also be realistic within the confines of what you can do and what makes sense.
Well, and you've just distilled one of the things that I think it means to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Is that piece that it's always changing, and you have to not necessarily stay in front of the change, but be willing to change as it goes.
Yep.
And knowing that that's a part of doing business. And doing business well is being able to navigate the different seasons as they come and take it as it comes and put whatever you have into it and know that you don't have everything all the time to put into it.
Yeah. It's, I saw somewhere, I'm going to see if I can paraphrase this because I don't have the exact wording, but, like, for people that are like lucky in business or lucky with things and success and things like that, it's like, it's not that. It's having the preparation, skill, and experience to be ready for whatever's thrown at you and optimize and profit off of that. So there's been a lot of those moments where I was like, we did this knowing that it could happen, and it did. So yeah, there's a lot to being ready for whatever business throws you or whatever else happens, and being kind and respectful in the failures. It's hard. I had a season this year. It was like, there were moments where I wasn't kind. I will say that. I was not kind. But it was short-lived, and at least with family, there's a bit of buffer room to be like, do better.
Right.
Do better.
I mean, you can say things to your sisters or your parents that maybe you couldn't say to other
Yeah,
staff.
and they can say it to me.
Right.
Which was what they said. So, yeah, it's all part of it.
I think there's more opportunity to be really honest when it's family because they've known you your whole life.
Yep.
So, and there's some difficulty that comes from them knowing you for your whole life, because you can't act the way you acted as kids in the family.
No.
Or you're not acting like a child with your parent, right? But we have these patterns of behaving and these patterns of relating that when you're in family business, you have to somehow break through those and start relating as coworkers, but with this solidarity and with this weight of we actually really know each other. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You can't walk out of the room with an employee. And so if it's an employee that's a family member, then you really have to work through it. So I think it's actually provided healthier conversations in my family. I think that we probably would have had worse habits that we continued in terms of not communicating well and not showing up sometimes to have the good conversations, because we have to. Because other people are relying on you, your employees, your business. So you have to do it.
Right. So this piece of, because the business put pressure on the relationships, it improved or strengthened your relationships in ways that maybe wouldn't have happened if you weren't working together or working towards something.
I think so. I don't know if some of my siblings would see it the same way. I feel like I'm more honest, and generally try to keep it kind honesty, but I feel like I ask good, hard questions to keep people being accountable.
Yes. Because that accountability piece is everything.
It is.
Because you have to hold them accountable. Like, would you say this if I wasn't your sister?
Yeah.
If you worked for me outside of this environment and I was your boss and not related to you, would you treat me this way? Would you talk to me this way?
Yeah.
Because your sisters all have a part in this business with you, but you are the person that is running the business, which is a different dynamic because you're not the oldest.
Nope.
So they're not all your sisters are necessarily used to looking up to you or looking to you for guidance. Mm-hmm. So talk to me about that transition, because I know when you go into a family business, and especially when you have employees that were there working for the father and now are working for the daughter or the son, there's a transition period that happens there. And there's a transition that period that happens within the family when a new family member is coming into a position of leadership, and how that changes the dynamic. So how did you navigate that space when you and your dad talked and you knew that you were stepping into this role and the other sisters were going to be involved but not going to be stepping into the leadership role?
It was a process, and it happened over years. Wasn't given the title general manager at the beginning. It was, Alyssa's responsible for hiring and the store. So it was nice to have that transition. There's only 2 employees that are still around from when I first started managing. One was respectful, one not so much. And it took a long time, and I still think that there's challenges there. But in general, most people know. And my dad was very kind in making sure, that's Alissa, to direct the questions to me. And I think that I've earned people's respect because they see me get things done. And, hey, this is what we're doing, whether or not, it's problem solving, like they know any problems come to me, and they see me do it well. And so that part, I had bumps, but I don't feel like it was too bad. I feel like my dad was always very kind in making sure people knew who was who. Do we still have where he comes in and people are like, well, Brant asked, and because he's still owner, that they're gonna do, well, you can't say no to him. And I'm like, yes, you can. Yes, you can. But that part with the siblings, it's been up and down. It's been a challenge. You learn things, you have steps back, you communicate better, you don't. In general, right now, I feel like there's good honesty there. I think we'll always have dynamics because we are 4 unique, strong-willed women.
Yeah.
And I think it means you've always got somebody really in your corner. Like, you're never alone. So that's great, right? But we're all strong-willed. So there's sometimes where it's like, oh, this is hard. This is hard to go through.
Yeah.
But I hope that through honesty and just being really fair to ourselves and to each other, that those conversations will resolve themselves and that we'll continue to be the strong, loving family we are, even though we're crazy,
Right.
which we are. So.
Well, and I noticed that you're tearing up a little bit, or you look like you're tearing up a bit.
Yeah.
So what is that piece about family? Because I know that family matters to you, and I know the business matters to you. So
Yeah, it's just, I care. Yeah. Both sides. So, yeah.
you care about your family and you care about the business.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I'm always been like, people think I'm the one with the armor on. I'm not. I'm not. So, yeah.
Well, and I think that I'm the one with the armor on comes from being competent.
Yes.
So, because people look to you in the business that you have the solutions and you have the answers and you know the best way forward for the business.
Totally.
Because you have created significant growth for this company in the last decade.
Yep.
Like you have taken this company that your dad successfully built and you have diversified your income streams. You have made some very significant changes to it, and your family has witnessed that. Yep. They know that you were the driver behind these changes that have had such a positive impact on the business. So because of that, I think that it gives this impression that you have armor, because you come across so competent and so confident and so sure.
Yep. Yeah, it is. And that's okay. Like I actually feel competent on most things when it comes to business. And I know my siblings know that I'm strong at this. They've said this, they've supported me. They said, well, we're not doing this unless you're not there, if you're not there, because they want to be part of it with me and my capacities and my strengths. And I have taken pride in that. It is still so much should be owed to my parents for what they did, right? They built it off of nothing. Like, They had to do things creatively and with materials that maybe weren't the best at the time, and now we're in a place where we can do everything as you want it, to look and be professional and, still rustic, and fun and approachable, but professional.
Yeah. This Sunshine's in a new era.
Yeah.
Than it was when it started.
Yes, it is. Yes. And it's still growing all the time. Like I even catch myself going, oh man, I'm losing my eye, when you see something that you haven't changed or fixed or, how something looks, and you're like, you still have to check back with yourself. So I'm hoping on the next generation to keep us growing and evolving and changing and all those things.
Is that a hope that you have for this business? That it would be something that you could see future generations in your family?
Yeah, I've employed most of my family. My daughter's too young to technically work, but she schedules herself. I've had lots of different involvement from multiple nieces and nephews, and that's been a way that I've been able to share a relationship with them, because we have just always been so busy in the summers. So I love that part of it. Yes, if they want to be involved for the right reasons, that they would get to share in what I find so fulfilling, sure. But to each their own, right? Like I was doing data analysis and then this.
Well, it's such a turn out of left field. Why don't you talk a little bit about your education? And the reason why I want you to do this is because I think it's important for our audience to hear how women get into business. Mm-hmm. Because it's not always, and I think most often, it's not a straightforward path. And we end up running businesses that are nothing like what we went to school for.
Yes.
But I think it speaks to our ability to be creative, to change, to put ourselves out there, to try new things. So your education is in?
It's in geography with a minor in GIS, which is data analysis, because what were you going to do with a geography degree? But I started out in international development and then realized I'm not going to get paid to work in international development. So that was an out. I think that's where there was a moment I was in University of Guelph, and I came back after winter break. My first nephew was just born for my sister. And I went back and I'm like, why am I here? And I literally stood up, withdrew, left in 3 days and moved to Vancouver. So I think my ability to go, you get to choose what you're doing, has been in me forever. That I like, you don't have to settle. You don't have to be stuck and think you don't have an out. You do. And other consequences? Yeah, sure. Did you lose some money? Yeah, you did. But do I remember that? No, I remember feeling like that was the right decision at the time, was to leave. And then I ended up at University of British Columbia, did my degree there, finished that, all while working because I had to. So it took me longer to do my degree than most, 5 years. And then traveling and whatnot, and then working in different things. And I'd always been helping my parents whenever I went back to do things. And even my husband, I told him when we met and we were driving from Prince George, I'm like, my dad's going to ask you to work. And he did work. So most of my friends have been asked to work by my parents at some point or another.
Well, and you have maintained that tradition.
Yes, I totally
You
have.
ask your friends to come and work.
Yes, I do.
Because you want to spend time with them in the summer.
Yeah.
And a lot of people love that work because of what you said at the beginning, that there's so much joy.
So much joy.
The people that are coming to Sunshine are experiencing.
Absolutely.
Like it's people's happy place. It's the time that they look forward to in the year is holidays or getting, to go on the boat for the day or go to the water park for a few hours. It's a time of excitement and things that people are looking forward to. And you can feel that when you're on site.
Yes. And people, like even with the water park, sometimes I just will sit and close my eyes because you just hear laughter and people having fun and just the screams and the howls and the everything, just people having so much fun. That's what it's about. And I would love to take ownership for the idea of the water park, but it was my dad. So, and, going, okay, yeah. But of course we both agreed. And I think I have a good mix of my dad's leap and my mom's how, so that I don't necessarily leap too much into, things that create a lot of work. Because, I think you need good people around you. And that's part of my development now, is trying to figure out how to have good people around me to support a healthy work-life balance. Because it is hard. It's as an entrepreneur, you are on. My brain is thinking of things all the time. I'll be like, oh, look at that. I should do that there. And we should do this, that. And a lot of it does relate back to work. And so, yeah, it's ongoing.
Well, that's an interesting piece that you bring up, just how much energy and attention that you put towards your business, because your business is quite seasonal, right? So you have guests on site, probably arriving somewhere in May and staying till maybe Thanksgiving in October, maybe.
Yeah, main season is July and August, but yes, there's people that, we have campers and whatnot that come out a little bit earlier, and then our mechanical season ends like mid-October.
So you head to the lake pretty much for the summer.
I went home for one night.
This last season.
Yeah, and I went to Whitefish for 3 nights. Yep.
So your work, because it's seasonal, how do you navigate that space? Because you have a family, you have your home here in Cranbrook in town, and you've got your space at the lake. So when you're at the lake, do you work the entire time?
End of June and beginning of July, yes. I just getting everything set up. And it depends on who's returning staff, or depends on, how things went with hiring and who you've got for your leads. But yes, I am working the entire time.
So when you talk about work-life balance, what are you meaning in that situation?
Well, I mean, the nice thing is that I can usually just work school hours in the off season. And I do actually have a lot that you continue to do. Like even right now, we're, new product development and things like that. We think about it now because we need to make sure all of our ducks in a row, so that you basically got 3 weeks to set up to be ready for like 100,000, 200,000 people coming through in a season. So you've got to be organized to make sure it's going to happen.
What do you actually mean when you say work-life balance?
I stopped working at some period of the day and would go and have dinner with my family, or I would, get on a boat, for an hour or two, or, go have dinner with someone, or just hang out with the kids, like all those things that you would. The only way I could hang out with my kids for this 1 month this year was if they came and worked with me, which I forced them to sometimes. I'm like, we're going to go do this together, or we're going to go, pick this up or do that. So I had to fit that in. In general, I feel like I'm okay with it, because I know we've talked about how I just naturally am doing that. I'm integrating with my life. So that there's many moments where you're like, okay, I don't want to have to go do this, but I have to go do this. So I would like to share that more with someone that is on the same level of, can share the load when it hits like that. I'm generally the person that deals with any problems at all.
And there's always problems.
There's always problems.
And in any business, there's always problems.
Yeah.
But I think in the business that you're in, the problem is right now that it needs to be fixed.
Yes. Yes, it is generally an immediate one in the season. And when I say problems, it could be a machinery breaks, or a client is disgruntled, or there's an injury, or there's whatever. Like it depends what you're dealing with. Usually it's just conversations with people, but it's immediate. You got to do it now.
Yeah, you can't delay.
You can't delay.
So when you've had time to go for a paddle in the evening or have dinner with your family, you feel better in work and in...
Yeah. I mean, I genuinely love my job. So I'm talking to happy people 98% of the time. So it's, I know every single person, mortgage client's name and their wife's name and most of their kids, if they've been out to the lake. So these are relationships too. They're not just clients. These are people that have shared parts of our lives, memories, moments, like just like they have, right? So it's not just a customer. Some of them feel like family.
Right.
Yeah.
Because they've been there for a decade.
Yeah.
Like returning every summer.
Yeah.
And you know them.
I know them.
So investing in spending time with them doesn't always feel like work.
No. I say it always feels like Friday.
It always feels like Friday.
It always feels like Friday. Like I don't, there's not, other than like being tired or not getting just some reasonable amount of time off with my family, I don't dislike any other than the 2% of angry people, but they're angry anyway. So you're going to deal with them anyway.
Right.
Right.
You just separate that piece.
Yeah. Oh, it slides right off my back. I don't take any of the, people are like, how do you deal with that? And I'm like, I don't deal with it. I just let it go. I'm like, elsewhere.
Right.
That's their problem. They have to live with themselves. Sorry.
So you just let it go and it actually stays gone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Employees and my staff, that's where sometimes if they're struggling, I feel the weight of that.
Because you're interacting with them on a regular basis.
Yeah,
so
or just like we know them well enough that they're like friends, like some of the longer term staff and things like that. Or even someone not the longer term staff, just seeing them, struggle through something and you just care because you're part of their life. Yeah, like you say, on a day-to-day basis.
Well, and you've said words today in this conversation about being kind and caring for people. And I think that's a relatively new way of doing business.
Oh, yes.
And I think it is a more female way.
It is. And I've had to actually explain it to older, mostly male staff that it's different. It's just different. And that is not, you may have had, in the past, it's like firm line, yes and no's, do your job or leave. That's not who I am. So I'm not going to manage that way. And I'm like, if that doesn't work for you and you want me to like yell at you, which I'm not going to do, I'm like, maybe this isn't the place for you. But yeah, there's definitely people that don't. And I've had clients who have asserted that they think you should just have thick skin. And I do, but some of my other staff don't, or have had moments where it's aggressive. Yeah. And I'm like, no, you don't. You don't have to be yelled at. You don't have to be able to take it. You can actually say, no, you can't talk to me that way.
Right.
So I haven't had too many, but here and there. I know there are people that want to say that to me.
So when you've had conversations with staff that work is going to look different now, are these people that had been in the business prior to you coming into a GM role, or were these people that are just maybe new staff but have a more traditional way of working?
Yeah, I think that there's some people just had a more, different upbringings, different like generations. Like we've got everything from Malcolm, who's still around. He's retired about 7 times and I don't think he'll ever leave. And he's, close to 80, obviously things were different back then. The work ethic was different. The perceptions and how you do things and how you treat other people, and especially people under you, is just different. Not mean, just different. But I would say most of the staff, it wasn't intentional. I didn't go, hey, I'm going to manage this way. I think that I learned that that's how I want to manage, and that often it was because of a circumstance, like somebody did something that I had to speak to, and I wasn't like, you just can't do that and walk away. It was like, what's going on for you? And then often I don't think I've ever not gotten information that wasn't valuable to help them.
Well, and it sounds similar to how you parent.
Yep.
Right? And I think that it's interesting, and I'm just kind of making this connection now, that the way that people parent has also shifted in the last few decades.
Oh, yes.
Right? That we're more, as parents, we're more interested in what's going on, and we want the backstory, and we're having conversations rather than just telling our kids what they need to do or not do.
Mm-hmm. Which I do have many moments of that too. Not with staff, but with my kids. Just do this, just because I said so. But yes, I think that is a paradigm shift for any relationship, whether it's working or it's family, that some people are they just ask more questions rather than just be like, no.
Well, and I know that parenting is a big part of your life. Like even how you were talking about the decisions that you're making for your business are for your immediate family. You're talking about your kids and your partner. Yeah. You're not talking about your sisters and your nieces and your nephews when you say immediate. Yep. So I know that family piece is really important to you. How do you navigate that when work is as demanding as it is?
There's been not pretty times where it's not working. Lots. Generally just in that June, July period. Obviously my husband is really flexible and has been able to pick up where we left off. We've had au pairs, we've hired help. My mom-in-law came out. So we've had different help. The kids are now old enough that this year I didn't hire anybody, although one of my sisters definitely took my daughter a lot. So, I mean, I have help there, and I'm trying to do better at acknowledging that value, because it is. I like that, knowing that my kids have a safe place to be when they're not, with me or my husband at the lake. But it's a village, and like, honestly, they live at an all-inclusive resort, and they'll have no idea how good their life is until they have to actually go pay for it.
Right. So the feeling that makes it okay when you're working from the time you get up till the time you go to bed is knowing that they're in holiday mode, having a wonderful time, and that they are surrounded by people that love them.
Yes.
That's how you be okay with it.
Yeah. If they weren't safe, I wouldn't be able to do it. Like, that would just not sit well. I mean, I'm sad that I don't see them as much as I want to, and that we're not connecting and, being present. That's very hard for me when I'm in that much of a bubble of work, because my brain is always just like constantly going through what needs to be done.
You mean you can't settle into the conversation with them?
Yeah.
Because you're thinking about like, oh, did that houseboat launch? Oh,
they'll say something that will trigger a thought, and I'll be like, right, I was supposed to do this for that person, and then that person goes like this, and all in 8 million different directions. I
think this is a fascinating aspect about you, and I've thought a lot about that piece in the past, because correct me if I'm wrong, but you have self-diagnosed yourself as having
and
ADHD.
With a counselor as well, and other people that, if you take enough of the self tests and assessments, then you're like, yeah. I mean, did I need to even take those to realize that my brain is always on the go and, would be characterized as ADHD? Yeah, no. I'm fully admit that I fit the bill. And through that, and having other, professionals say, yes, you probably do have ADHD and just didn't realize it. I don't know. I always went up through the positive sides of it, because I think that my brain, the way it works, is that I have high capacity. I can do a lot, and I can think of a lot of things, and I can solve through a problem in my head faster than most. And in a way that's like, okay, this is what's going to happen. We're going to go do this, 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 and this. And they're just like, I wasn't past, should I turn my head? So it's a great quality. The crappy thing is that I never turn off. So you're just like always thinking all the time. So that's not great, but it works really great for a business.
So you're choosing to see the side of it that serves you and
Yeah,
serves.
I mean, because my son is the same, he's got a lot of the same characteristics, and I see him struggle. And with boys, it just presents different. You're more physical. So I think that's, at the time they were just starting to, I think, diagnose kids when I was in elementary school. So I don't even think and it just looks different. Like it's,
well, being female, it wasn't as noticeable
No.
probably as it would have been had you been a male
yeah,
at that time.
yeah. And even just today, like even with my daughters, I think she potentially could, because she's constantly moving. Like her doing 50 cartwheels is cute. A boy doing 50 cartwheels in a hallway doesn't present the same. They just go, oh, you shouldn't be physical. You could be dangerous. Whereas with girls, it's cute. And so he just gets different attention, which is unfortunate. So I'm trying to focus on the positive sides of it. I mean, but I'm also can get very distracted if I work from home. Not great, but I found tools that will just be like, okay, these are the markers that you need to finish, dumb things like lists. I mean, I know this sounds stupid, but you need lists that are clear, that you can read. Because sometimes I write my list and I'm like, what did I write for myself?
What does that mean?
Like, oh, well, next.
It'll come back if it's important, or it won't, and it'll fail and I'll have to fix it, but I can do that too.
Yeah.
So when work is happening at the lake, it probably really serves you well.
It does.
Whereas when you're at home and you've got all of the competing pieces of family, the house, and work, which is less pressing because it's not in your face, right?
Yep.
Because you're preparing for the next season.
Yeah.
That's probably the time that it's more difficult for you to navigate.
Yes, transitioning out is always a challenge. I'm better at parts of it, but it's always a challenge. And it's like, imagine you're getting like constant dopamine fixes all day long. We love this place. This place is awesome. Laugh, cry. Everybody's happy. And then you go to mom on like literally the Monday of September long. You turn in and then you go, okay, do you have your school supplies for this? I don't want to go to school. I don't want to do this. Sad, sad, sad. Not happy. And I'm generally the problem person. So if there's an issue, I get it. So then it's not nice, happy dopamine fixes. It's like switch right out, which I just kind of realized in the last 2 years. I was like, right, that's why one of the reasons it's hard to transition out. So yeah, trying to find ways of being like more positive and just not kind of going into that mode. It's like, oh, right, you're tired but you still need to show up for your family.
Yeah. Well, because you've been present for your family, but not really.
Not really.
Like they've been seeing you physically. They physically see you in the summer, but they don't necessarily interact with you unless you're working together. So then to go home and have to be present when the space doesn't feel as positive as it did in this. Like there's no more Fridays.
There's no more Fridays. There's no more Fridays. Yeah. It's hard. I don't have the full gamut solved at this point. I'm just trying to be, because my kids are young and they're not going to be young forever. I'm just like, try to be present in a way that is fun or just nice.
Just be nice.
I don't need to, like always be like, have you done your room? Have you done this? Like, I'm trying to let things go more because it doesn't matter. I'm not going to remember how dirty something was, even though it feels overwhelming. And that's for ADHD. That's one thing, is that if your space is a mess, it's very hard to concentrate. It's just not easy. So you have to be very thoughtful about it. And sometimes there's space this season right now, because I think I'm just grateful that I'm through the hard part, that I know, I don't know, it seems okay right now, but I'm still out weekends, right?
Right. So being grateful that you're through the hard part, meaning the transition.
No, the hard part of just this year was I didn't have support. I didn't have support in operations the way I needed it. And I thought I did, but sometimes it just doesn't work out the way. So then by the time the problem was, I was like, I just have to do it all.
Well, yeah, because it's going to be over in 2 months.
Yeah.
Or it's going to be over in 6 weeks or 5 more weeks. Like, because your season is so short, I'm sure that you try to plan and prepare as much as you can, but then the season starts, and if things aren't in place the way that you thought, by the time you would solve it, it's too late.
Yeah.
So you just kind of...
You just do it.
Do it.
You just do it. Yeah. So it was the most that I've ever experienced, for sure. So I don't want to do that again. So now I know specifically what, and that's part of with mom and dad working out and like how much they're doing and trying to figure out what's a happy balance for them, and also wanting them to continue to be involved for as long as they can be, because I want them there. I want them there because I know that they're happy and that I'm happier when I'm, around them. This year was just harder because I couldn't pull from them. And they were still helping with tons of other areas, but it wasn't.
You weren't able to rely on them the way that you have in previous seasons, just because they've changed.
Yeah, capacities have changed. Yeah. And they did still help. I just didn't have some support that I needed to do in addition to what I already do, right? Like, so like trying to make sure you're focusing on product development and HR and client care and marketing and all those things that are on. Yeah. So now, yeah.
Well, and you don't even know that that's coming.
No.
That change in how much capacity people are going to have. You don't necessarily see it coming, because things can impact that so drastically, so quickly.
Yes.
Well, and I don't know if this happens in your household, but because I have owned businesses with my family as well, my parents included, I will have my dad telling me that my mom can't do things. Mm-hmm. And so my dad is like, Amy, you can't get mom to do this. She, you know, or my brother will come in and say, she can't do that. She's doing too much. So then I go to my mom and oh no, I'm fine. I can totally do this. Like, yeah, I'm fine. Yeah. So it's whose word do you take? Because then I'll get in trouble. Mm-hmm. My dad will give me trouble because I've given my mom work that my mom has asked for to do. And I'm just like, I can't handle all of this. Like, I'm just going to trust people with what they say.
Yes.
I'm going to trust that my mom will say no. And I'm going to not ask if I feel like I'm not supposed to ask. But do you run into that?
Yes, absolutely. And I'm trying to balance how to be truthful with my parents, being like, hey, like noticing that things maybe aren't being remembered all the time, or Dad, can you tell me when you can't hear me? And
and that's so hard when you have somebody who is so competent.
Yes. Yeah.
And is used to running a business and has this whole life.
Yep.
And is used to knowing what to do, when to do it, how to do it.
Yeah. I'm not saying I'm even close to the hump. I'm at the beginning of helping, trying to be, I said, be kind to yourself. Is this okay? It doesn't change anything about you. I still need you. I need you. I'm like, but I also need systems in place so that if you do forget to email Bob about the thing that you said you were going to do, that there's a catch so that we don't forget it, because it matters. Because then I don't have to go, can I get into your email? See if you emailed Bob.
You're like going behind the scenes. Well, and it's tricky because those capacity changes don't just happen when people age.
No.
And I'm sure you've experienced.
I forget things.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, and I'm sure you've experienced things because you've had a staff team and worked with a staff team, that there are things that happen in people's personal life, and it automatically comes into work. And it's not that they wanted, and it's not that they're not doing work, but their stress from their personal parts of their life is automatically leaking in to the way that they're doing work. And some people are aware of it and some people are not aware of it. So it's not just related to aging that you run into these things, or that as a manager you have to be able to navigate through seasons. And especially when you're doing a business that really is about people. Yeah. Because not only your client base is people and giving people a good experience, that's also impacting the way that you work with your staff, seeing that these are people that I care about and that I'm investing in. Yeah. Yeah. It's just hard. But I hope that we're going to navigate it fine. And I keep just saying, like, it's okay. I'm like, I forget things. Like, don't worry about it. I'm like, but we got to have systems so that we know we've said what we think we've said. Because there's habit, right? And be like, I sounds like something I would have said. Did you say it? You don't know if you said it. So that's okay. But then we're going to say it again, just to make sure we covered our bases. And this was the first season, so I feel like I'm still fresh in trying to figure out how to do that. Totally. I'm sure I'll Google it and figure out. Google will give you an answer.
Yeah, give me an answer. How do you navigate aging parents without making them feel devalued? right?
Yeah,
That's what it is.
that is exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Well, and recognizing that they're in a life phase where legacy matters.
Yes.
And for recognizing what contribution have I made to this world, to this life, to my family, you know, and for your dad being a business person and your mom, because she's
Oh, yes.
been,
She's backbone.
she's been there right there, right? So I think a lot of our sense of self comes from that when we're entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And I think it's more important for our male counterparts. I don't know if that's entirely true, but in the women that I've talked with, there's definitely this other big piece around family and life outside of work.
Yes. I always said if they were going to post this job, they never would have hired me. They just wouldn't have. But, family, can't go back and forth, has to drive back and forth. Like, you wouldn't have hired someone for this job. But it also meant that flexibility for me and for my parents, right? Because we could kind of offset each other as they're transitioning out. It was a big value. So while I know they wouldn't probably have hired me for my resume, but they knew better. They knew better. And that's the other part too. Like, I wish somebody would have said, hey, Alissa, like, you're really good at telling people what to do. Like, I didn't even think about it. I didn't even cross my mind to run a business until I started just being like, hey, I'm going to help you with this, and going, oh, I like controlling what's happening. I like being in the position where it's like, we can do this well. So no one, but why would they?
I think that's such an interesting piece that you just pulled out about entrepreneurship, that it's not necessarily something that people bring to the forefront of this is a career, or this is a direction that you could go. You know, because those attributes that you have as a leader, you've had your whole life.
Yep.
So that not necessarily being recognized, because your paths cross people, right? As you're going through, where people are encouraging you which direction to explore. And it's interesting that didn't come from your parents.
No, and they just always said you could do whatever you want to do, right? But there was never really a push in anyone. I mean, my oldest being like, it was obvious, be a nurse. But none of us, it was just like, do what you want to do. Oh, that sounds like fun. You should, work at this place. Go work at Disney World. Okay, that sounds fun, right? It wasn't a direction of a career. I don't think I ever had discussions with my parents around what career I should maybe look into.
I wonder if that's reflective of the times that we grew up in.
Yes.
And how,
I'm sure.
And how it's changed. Women's roles have changed.
Yep. Yeah, I would say so.
That having daughters versus having sons, and daughters or having sons, that the focus on career maybe wasn't, they wanted you to explore and do things and be who you were supposed to be, but it wasn't necessarily going to be a driver.
No, they just, work hard. Oh, that sounds like fun. Yeah, try that. Do this. And it was never negative. And there was always, I would say that my parents were very good at teaching us not to have fear, to try things. Because, it's just like, why not? What's the worst that's going to happen? And I practiced that now more and more with my dad, where I'll be like, really? And he's like, yeah, let's just do that. So now I feel like I do that. I'm just like, let's just do it. The addition to our water park this year, when we blew it up, I was like, oh, it's kind of big. But it was huge. It was a massive success. And I think even now my other sister, who's been working with me directly for almost 5 years now, even she's starting to get you take risks. That's where growth happens. That is where growth happens.
Well, and that is such a huge piece of entrepreneurship, is taking risks.
You have to.
You have to. And you don't know how they're going to work out.
No.
And they're not all going to work out.
I'm more calculative in my risks that I take. Like, I over-research them. And then I'll be like, okay, yeah, good. Whereas my dad was more of like, yeah, I'll be good. Let's do it. And then, figure out the logistics later. Whereas I figure out the logistics prior.
Do you think that was a gut thing for him? Like, he knew in his gut, this is going to be good, so we're going to do it?
Yeah, so he's always been like, ideas, and why don't we try this, and we'll go like, and I have that, not as big as him, and he doesn't have young kids at home. So I said, Dad, can't bring me 8 million ideas because I have 3 children that are my biggest ideas. So I'm like, keep doing it and bring me the good ones.
Right. That's part of figuring out how your relationship at work works now.
Yeah.
Like, what are the roles that you're going to take? And
Yeah.
he can continue thinking of all these great big ideas, but
Yes.
you don't have time.
I don't have time for all of them.
Well, what's interesting about that is because you're talking right now about a boundary,
Oh, yeah.
that you're wanting this specific boundary. And what I think is fascinating is you don't have a lot of that boundary in the summer months.
No. None.
Like, I would say none. So it probably makes it that much more important in the off season that those boundaries are really strict.
Yes. And it usually is when I'm like, okay, I'm overwhelmed or something, that I go, whoa, like, how do I quiet the noise? It is important, the boundary part. And I here and there, I'm good and healthy at it. And then it's usually reactive. I would say that. It's not as proactive. Same with the summer. I'm just reacting. But I know movement is key. It's just where I'm happy. Like walking, it's probably just like walking and paddleboarding. Those two. Repetitive movements.
Let your brain wander.
Yep.
So you're able to fit that into the summer, just that movement piece. And in the winter, you, in theory, have more time.
In theory, I have more time. I think just less. I don't know. It's cold out.
Yeah, it is. There's no
It's cold
lake.
out.
There's no lake
There's
in
no
the
lake.
Kootenays through the
No.
winter that isn't frozen.
It's not, you're not getting hot and being like, let's go for a swim. Like,
Yeah.
those are probably some of my favorite moments, is being like, hey, Jess, you're in the canteen. Brett, hey, come down. Let's go for a swim. Take a 5-minute break and laugh at each other. And
Those are your sisters that you're
Yeah.
saying that you want to spend time with in the summer. And I think that's one of the gifts of being in business with family, is that you have these relationships that you've had your whole life. Like, siblings are forever friends
yes.
because they've known every side of you forever. And when you work together and do business together, that relationship gets to be on a different level.
It does. There's just more stake.
Yeah.
There's just more. And yeah, we'll see what the next years bring. I'm hoping that we're all involved to some degree, but I also just want people to be honest with themselves about what that looks like. And then for me to continue and just trying to grow and create a business that is a little bit less labor intensive and less high skill needs and things like that. But at the same time, still thinking outside the box about, what other things we can do.
And what can you offer your
Yeah.
guests? And
Or maybe not even at the lake, maybe elsewhere. Right? So there's opportunity now, which is great with growth and we're in a good place.
well, and your merchandise
Yeah.
for
so fun.
Sunshine is, you've kept it pretty much just at base, right?
Yeah.
But I see your merchandise everywhere.
Yeah.
And you've had circumstances where people have stolen
Yep.
your merch design and started creating their own
Yep.
with your designs.
Yep.
So you've definitely hit it there.
Yep. It's, that's just part of the general branding side of things. I think that, one, it was fun because I was like, Brett, it was make this design, and then we'd make it up, and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. Now she's taken over that part of it and taken ownership and growing it and doing things that I was like, I would never buy that. And then it sells out and I'm like, fine.
Well, her being a little bit younger.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
And not being a mom, like she has a different life, a different experience, which is
Yeah.
going to make her ideas and her creativity piece. It's just going to be different.
Yes.
And it's amazing to see people have success.
Yeah,
Like
it is. It is. It's all part of it, and it's amazing with it being so diversified. Is that it's a bit of what's the word? I guess it protects itself. But it also creates so much more work because I'm basically running 7 different businesses.
Right. Because you have the water park, you have the rentals, you have the moorage, you have the store, you have the
Mechanical,
restaurant, the mechanical piece.
The campground. So it's a lot.
It is a lot.
Yeah.
Well, and when you got on board on this business, the plan was to get ready for dad to be able to sell, dad and mom, so they can move on. Then it comes to this place of, oh, I love this. I think I can do this. And hey, who knew? But I'm fabulous at it. And now here we are 11 years from that point, and your parents are even more in a position where they're moving away from the business. And your role as the GM has really solidified as you've learned more aspects of the business and as your team is looking to you. So what's happening now? Because it's tricky. It's tricky when it's a family business and you're not the only child.
Yes.
So how are you navigating that? Because I think when you have a family business, that's the piece, is how do you do succession planning?
Yeah.
And especially, how do you do succession planning that maintains relationships? Because relationships really matter to your family.
They do. They do. It's been ongoing and it's still not over. And I was told it would take a long time, anywhere between 2 to 5 years. And we're nearing on 4 of like official conversations of what that's going to look like. It's not over, but I feel probably the most convicted I felt in the whole process, which feels better. But it also means that I'm advocating for things that are going to be quite different than what was discussed 4 years ago. So we're just at the beginning of what that's going to look like. But I know that I feel pretty confident in the fact that whoever wants to be involved, that they shouldn't share in profit growth or growth in equity if they're not involved. And I wasn't convicted on that 4 years ago because I didn't really know what that meant. But after having some seasons of strong growth, some easy ones and some really hard ones, that it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense as a business plan. That if you want to be involved, awesome, for the right reasons, because you feel competent in that area, you are committed for at least 5 years, at least, ideally the long haul, because that's me.
Yeah.
There's no date on my end of commitment until it doesn't make sense. That's the end of the date.
Yeah.
And that you love it, that you want to be part of it, and that you understand the sacrifices that you'll have to make it work, and that you will benefit when it goes well, but that if, it hits the fan, that you're also going to be there to help pick it up.
Yeah.
So, and I think that makes sense just as a business. You would never hire someone or put them into your company as an owner unless they were giving you a lot of money to share into that. So that's where we're at. We're just going to have really strong, open conversations, and I've put my perspective forward, and we'll see. I hope that makes sense. I think it will, and if it doesn't, I still feel like we'll get there. We'll get there. Right?
You know enough about working with your family that you know that there's going to be a path through if everybody will just stay at the table to talk it out.
Yep.
And continue to hold those values of being honest and kind.
Yep.
And caring.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, and you've hit on some really interesting pieces about family businesses and how they're different than other businesses. That piece that you don't just get this because you're family.
Yes.
Because that is a part of family business.
It is.
Just like you were saying, you got that job even though nobody would hire you based on your resume for that position.
No.
But because you're family, you got into that position, and it's been the best thing for your business, for your family's business, you being a part of it in the way that you've been a part of. So it offers these opportunities, but it's not necessarily going to be equitable for everybody. And maybe it shouldn't, because it's one thing when it's parents and kids, but the more families grow and the longer time goes on, you're not just talking about kids, you're talking about the grandkids, which are your kids. And I know Jody and I had that experience with one of our businesses. Like, we're building wealth up in this company. Who are we building it for? Mm-hmm. Am I building it up for my brothers who don't even work here? Or am I building it up for my brother's kids? Or are we building it up for our kids? And it's a tricky thing when you really love and care about your family.
Yes.
And trying to figure out how to navigate that space.
Yeah, I'm hopeful that it's going to be fair conversations. Like, people just need to really think about, what does this mean for you or your kids or your kids' kids? Do you want a part of that for the right reasons? And if you do, then I'm totally open to that conversation. Will I have controlling interest? Yes. But beyond that, I'm open. I would love to share the load with people that want to share the load.
Well, because that's a piece too. Not having to do it all.
Yeah.
Maybe being able to have dinner with your family in the summer. Yeah. That might be nice. Yeah, or just when it's not good and you're like, okay, how do I do this? And
if someone's aware of what's going on, they have full context, they don't judge you. There's some judgment pieces where it's like, you're judging me for how I'm choosing to do something, but do you realize I've thought of all of it?
Right.
And this is my option in the moment. It wasn't a thoughtless decision about asking said person to do said thing. I am thinking of it.
So feeling like sometimes people come in with ideas. So
Yeah.
we're talking family.
Yeah.
Like family are like, you need to live your life this way, or you need to be taking more time off.
Or you need to manage this way, or why are you doing it that way? And no context though. It's like,
Yeah.
do you think I just got here this moment? That nothing happened prior to me arriving at this moment
Yeah.
to get to this place?
Well, and then that's that piece where you have to be open and be...
Yes. Which I was, yes, you do. And I came back to it later. At the time it was like, do you? Really?
Well, and that's that piece of, you grew up with this person.
Yeah.
Like you stole her clothes or,
did.
right?
Yeah.
Or broke her toy, or she chased you down the hallway with like a curling iron, like, right? Like there's crazy dynamics that happen in families.
Yeah.
And you have all of these memories and all of these backstories of these people that do these things.
Yes.
And so when they say things like, what are you doing? Or you shouldn't do it that way. I find for myself with my own brothers, like my back will get right up.
Yes.
And
I know it's triggering for sure.
it's triggering. And I've found with being in business with some of my brothers, because I have at different times, is I have to relate as adults and not
Yes.
as kids,
Yes.
but still relate as siblings.
Yes. Yep. It's there's many moments where I'm just like, do not go there. Don't go down to like, bringing up that feeling that's not actually accurate to the moment. It's a history place. It's old habits. It's bad forms of communication that existed when you were 12.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Well, and it brings me back to that piece that you said when you're dealing with a customer who's just angry.
Yeah.
And you're like, it just washes
Nothing.
away. You don't even think about it. But that can be very difficult to do when you have a relationship with a person and
yeah.
you care about them.
Oh no, totally night and day.
But sometimes in the moment, that's what you need to do too.
Yep.
Is just let it go and realize that, you know what, even though they're in this business and they share some of the ownership and they share some of the work, they don't actually know.
Yes.
And it's not worth it.
No. Most of the time, I would say most of the time I took the high road. I here and there, you have moments, right? When you're with family. Exactly. But I wouldn't want it any differently. I hope that my family all wants to be on board to some degree. And mom and dad will be there till they choose not to be. And they're very young for their age.
They are, which I
And-
think is part of what work has given them.
Yes.
Being able to be at the lake since they were in their 50s.
Yeah.
And I mean, your dad worked hard.
So hard.
Like
Yeah.
it is such a physical job.
Yeah, totally. And but it has kept them moving and doing things, and it's important to them to be able to experience life and go and do stuff on their off times and but also, go get in the floaty. Even if it's awkward and it looks funny, you're fine. Go get in the floaty.
Well, and having that connection to so many generations is beautiful because it's a mini community out there.
Totally.
So they're coming back and hearing these stories too. I think that also keeps us young.
It does.
When we see change over life, there's new babies being born, there's people getting married, there's, it's just a more full experience when you have all ages together living.
You do. You need to see your grandparents. You need to have those conversations and different ways of being, and to not just be stuck in your, especially with technology today, especially for kids. It's like, no, life is not just right here. Life is, and so like, I love that they barely go on any screens. They sometimes set up the projector. They're not on screens in the summer.
Right.
And it's awesome.
Because they're getting to live this incredible full life.
Yes.
On holiday mode.
They have no idea. They have no idea. I'm just like, it's literally an all-inclusive, because everybody else is on holiday. So they just hang out with people that are on holiday. And then they go boating with people on holiday. And then they eat sometimes with people on holiday. So it's an all-inclusive.
Well, but the other piece is they're working too.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
you know, and they see you working. So
Yeah.
what a incredible gift that you're giving them, because a lot of kids who have parents as entrepreneurs, they see hints of it, right?
Yes.
Because entrepreneurship is 24/7. So they see the work happening in the evenings and the weekends, and they understand the flexibility and the commitment and that piece. But your kids get a front row seat to
Yes.
what does it look like to be an entrepreneur.
I know. It still amazes me that they want, like, my second and our daughter, we're going to be in management for sure. We're going to take over Sunshine. I'm like, it amazes me that they still see it as a positive, because it does pull me away, right? They know I'm not really available in the summer. I am, like, if there's a problem, I'm there, but they do defer to dad in the summer. They just go, okay, and he says he's a far second, but they get to be part of it and still want to be in the future. They talk about the future, like working for Sunshine. I'm like, okay, so it can't be that bad.
Well, and the other piece that's so interesting about that, what you were saying earlier, that nobody's seen that you would have been a good entrepreneur, a good leader. They didn't see those attributes in you, or recognize that this would be a place where you could find a lot of success and satisfaction. Your kids will consider this
Oh, yes.
as a viable option.
Yes.
And probably not just in the houseboating business or just in tourism, but I think they'll be able to recognize that there's many places that they could be an entrepreneur because of the life that you've given them.
Yeah.
And the exposure that they've had to business firsthand through their summers.
Yeah, they will see it as an option. I'm sure. I'm for sure too. If not all three are very good at telling people what to do. So,
well, there's something about those traits that we inherit.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't surprise me that there are so many people in family business, and it doesn't surprise me that entrepreneurs raise entrepreneurs.
Yes, I think you have that gene or you don't.
Yeah. Yeah. There are certain characteristics that I think make entrepreneurship easier for some.
Yes. Yeah.
And being able to tell people what to do.
Definitely one of them. Definitely one of them.
Well, I mean, that depends if you have a business where you have a lot of people working for you, right? And that you have the managerial side of your entrepreneurship, which not all businesses have, but.
Yeah, no, for sure. And when I say that, it kind of sounds negative when I say tell people what to do, but, give the information and then empower to go off and do their job well and feel good at it. Like even with the staff, like I do all our debriefing and, like I'm saying, scale of 1 to 10. I ask them all, and they're all like nines. I'm like, okay. And then at the end, I'm like, what could make it a 10? I don't know. Right. Okay. So, asking them good questions. Most people, they're like, this was a number of people. This is my favorite job I've ever had. And they've had, they're 28. And I'm like, they're like, we got to figure out how to do more of this so that I can have a good meld. Like take my skill set that, maybe one was in marketing or accounting or whatever and do it. And I was like, that you could like start this company. You talked about this, so most of the time I'm creating relationships and encouraging the staff, even if they're only with us for one season.
Right.
Like I've trained hundreds of young people, hundreds and hundreds now after 11 years doing it. And seeing many of them go off and start their other companies or just, work in a field that they didn't think they were going to work in, that people often are coming and doing this job on working holiday visas or just as a break. And then they go, right, I get to choose. I get to choose what I want to do.
What an incredible legacy.
Yes, I love that
piece
part.
Is.
Yeah.
That you get to invest in people and encourage people to find their space.
Yeah. Yeah. It's important. I think, when people feel valued, they do better.
They do.
They just do.
They work
and
harder.
I do value them because they're providing a service to me to make our company work well. Right. Yeah. So I think it's mutually beneficial to be vested in each other.
Yeah. That's the beautiful part of being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Is being able to provide something for the people that work for you.
Yes.
And recognize that you are where you're at because of the people that have come alongside
100%
and are working for you.
Yeah. I was totally just thinking about like how many people, someone suggests, let's do the display this way. I'm like, that's a great idea. And then the next person goes, oh, we should, add this and expand this. And it's like, it never, like this symbiosis of what has happened to create where Sunshine is built on people's investment from hard work and inspiration and creativity on so many levels. Like there's nothing that you could just say one person did that.
Well, and that's a reflection of your leadership, because there are companies and there are leaders and there are business owners that don't lead the way that you lead. But because you recognize that this is a person that has value simply because they're a person.
Yeah.
And giving them the space to explore and create and try things out opens the door for people to be more creative and to take risks and to have competence and autonomy. And that's when you get the best work.
Yes. Yeah, it is 100%.
And it's shared. The success of Sunshine is shared.
Yeah. Yeah. For many, like in so many ways. Yeah, no, it's, I love that piece of it. And, you know, I used to get annoyed with non-returning staff, and I'm like, no, it's good. Well, I can get everybody there. There's no problems there. Now we got videos, which will be great.
Right. Yeah, because it is seasonal, the turnover of staff is different than if it's an ongoing. Yeah.
Yeah. This year we had 49 people. So that's every year. So, and I think we had 10 people returning. No, more, 15. So that's great. I'm happy with that percentage. Change. I bring it.
Yeah.
It's fine.
You've always embraced change, so
yes,
that's a nice fit.
I would be bored.
I'm so thankful that you came today and that you were open and vulnerable with your story. You've built such a beautiful business alongside your family, and I know that it's not always easy to navigate working with your family, and we have to do things for the company, which means that sometimes we have to put family aside. And it doesn't mean that family isn't more important than the company, but in certain moments, in certain decisions, it can feel like the company is coming first, even when you know that what you're doing is setting your future family up, or it's taking care of your family of origin.
Yep.
And I think you have been navigating that space with so much grace. And I'm so thankful that you have shared that part of your story, and also the challenges of working in a succession plan, and noticing that what's happening in the family is changing and the dynamics and relationships are changing, and finding a way through that. I think is inspiring and encouraging for others who are going to have to work through those similar situations. So thank you so much for being here.
You're so welcome. Yes. No, happy to share. And if anything can provide anything to someone to inspire them or direct them, then, you know, I'm always happy to share. So, and with you, of course.
Thanks.
Yeah. Okay.